What's up guys, Tim here from Everyday Tactical Vids, and today we're going to be responding to the questions you posted in my video from like probably, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago. A couple things as we start off here. First is that some people ask what's your favorite piece of survival gear, what's your favorite EDC items, those types of things. I'm going to be doing separate videos. I've actually got a survival knife video coming up probably in 2 months, a little bit less than 2 months. I've got a bunch of different companies that are going to be partnering with us on that, so that'll be cool, from low cost to much more expensive custom type knives. And then I'll be doing a video on EDC items, some of my favorite EDC items. So that'll be coming up soon. So I'm going to take those two, put them on the side, and we'll look at some other things, look at some of those in the future. But right now we'll get into some of these other questions. Let's see. Cedric Ada Gear and Outdoors, or Cedric Ada Gear and Outdoors. What other YouTube channels do you enjoy, like top 3 gear survival? Top 3 is a little bit hard to do. I'd have to think about it, but here's some folks I check out pretty regularly. I like the late Boy Scout a lot. Had a chance to meet him and hang out with him at SHOT Show 2015, so that was cool. He does good stuff. He does a mix of outdoor gear and stuff, and then also firearm stuff. I'm not doing as much firearm stuff, which I'll actually speak to that in a moment. And so late Boy Scout, I've always liked nothing fancy stuff. Some people like him, some people don't. I think he seems like a cool dude. Met him at SHOT Show as well, and he's really an innovator as far as doing these gear reviews and stuff. So appreciate his stuff. I also like his philosophy videos. It's not just like here's the gear, but also kind of talking about bigger items, bigger things to think about. So those two guys. I've always liked Ben from CRKT. Used to be at Blade HQ. I've always liked his videos. And particularly the ones at Blade HQ was kind of a new way to do it. Not just here's the item, you know, even using the item, but kind of like here's the story behind it. So he'd take video of people snowshoeing and using the gear, or, you know, here's a survival scenario. What do you do? How do you filter water? Testing products, and also showing different products from Blade HQ. So I like the stuff he's done. Pretty creative. I pretty regularly check out reviews and items from people like, let's see, Bushcraft Bartons, Survival Lily, Prepared Mind 101, Black Scout Survival, Gideon's Tactical, Survival on Purpose, Jarhead 6. He's a smaller channel, but shout out to you. Love your stuff, bro. Just feel like you're really heartfelt. He's not just, you're not like robotic. You're just like, yo, here's who I am. Here's the stuff. So one other person is David from Ultimate Survival Tips. First time I ever saw him, I was just starting to get back into survival stuff, outdoor stuff. And was watching one of his reviews. I think it's for one of the Bear Grylls knives when he like busts through a window with it. And I was like, yo, dude just broke a car window. I got to check this guy out. So he's very much kind of a teacher and high quality production. He's not just, you know, punch out a ton of videos. I feel like he's got like 100, maybe 200 videos, but a lot of views on those videos. Yeah, so he's a good dude. I like him. Just a friendly guy. And again, had a chance to hang out with him at SHOT Show 2015, and probably will do so this year. He may do a little survival outing in the Las Vegas, Nevada desert, and shoot some video of that, so we'll see. Somebody asked like why I have to scroll through all the questions here, but why I don't do more videos and stuff about weapons, firearms in particular. And the bottom line is I just don't have as much experience there. So I got a couple buddies who shoot. I'll go and shoot with them, and we do stuff in the outdoors, but it's just not my area of expertise by any means. And so I try to talk about things I know a little bit more. Question, here you go, Renaissance Marine TV. Appreciate this question. He said, what is your, or she said, I think it's a him. What is your background or resume that should make me consider your reviews of products and techniques? Very good question, very fair. So let me tell you a little bit about me. I think I had this in a video from a long time ago, but I had a very low number of subscribers, so a lot of people don't know this. So I always grew up doing stuff in the outdoors, camping, canoeing, fishing, hiking, all kinds of stuff like that. Lots of off-the-trail adventuring as well. So I did that all through growing up, high school. When I went to college, I actually minored in outdoor recreation, I have to say. So I took a lot of courses that required you to go out in the woods and do different things, archery courses, and you know, camping, canoeing, backpacking, winter camping, stuff like that. And then I also taught so I was at Ithaca College in New York, and right next door is Cornell University. And if it used to at least be true, they had the biggest indoor climbing wall of anywhere east of the Mississippi. So they have a massive outdoor education program. When I was at the end of high school, I got into reading a lot more, and I started learning a lot of stuff from Tom Brown's Wilderness Survival. I just basically taught myself in the woods how to do a lot of the survival stuff. And then when I was at Ithaca, Cornell had an opportunity to teach Wilderness Survival, and so I taught that a bunch of times to different classes in their outdoor education department. So that's, you know, just kind of what they call dirt time, just getting out there, learning it. And then when you have to teach something, you definitely learn how to do it more effectively. So teaching at Cornell was a big opportunity for me to learn and refine my skills. And then I actually got connected to a guy who I taught one of the classes with, who was doing classes for like local schools and stuff. So we did wilderness survival like that. And then while I was doing that, I also just got into tons of backpacking and camping and outdoors. So I've done winter camping in pretty much all the Northeast. I've done it in Maine, when it was like freezing cold. I've soloed Mount Washington in the winter in January. It was -50 with wind chill, so I've solo hiked Mount Washington, biggest peak in New Hampshire. Done a lot in the Adirondacks, tons of winter camping. I actually prefer winter camping just because there's fewer bugs. So I've done tons of snowshoeing, backpacking, cross-country skiing, all kinds of stuff in the Adirondacks, the White Mountains. I've done stuff in Maine. I've also done stuff in the Rockies. I've done stuff in Rocky Mountain National Park, Moab. I've been to Arches, done stuff in Sequoia, Kings Canyon, and a mix of backpacking, hiking, snowshoeing, a wide variety of stuff. And then just as you get more and more into the outdoors, and maybe if you have that wilderness survival angle, you'll just start testing yourself more and more. So I spent a lot of time just out in the woods trying to refine my skills and make me better. And so for me, at the end of the day, it's always like proof is in the pudding. So if I'm like, hey, here's how to do a bow drill fire, but I can't do it, well then I don't know what I'm doing. If I can make a shelter, survive in the woods, be out in the woods for long times. I've done solo cross-country trips of backpacking and camping and hiking for the better part of a month. I've done solo hikes 8-10 days or so. So I've done a lot of stuff by myself where you got to just learn to fend for yourself. So definitely dirt time and experiences is how I learned to do a lot of my stuff. I got training in different areas, but mostly it's just getting out there and figuring it out on my own. And then when you watch the videos, you see, if my thoughts make sense, then you can say maybe he knows his stuff. If you think this guy doesn't know anything, then you're probably not even watching this video. So that's kind of my background. What's my favorite movie? I really like The Village from M. Night Shyamalan, and I really like Book of Eli. I thought those are two awesome movies. And I like Gladiator too. I just like that. I like the kind of the character from Gladiator. I think that's kind of cool. He's kind of a cool dude. So one was like, if you had to choose a survival expert to bug out with your family, who would that be? That's from Cyclist 01222. There was a question like that, and there was also one like, do you like Ray Mears or Bear Grylls? Neither of those guys don't really follow that much. I have like Dave Canterbury's stuff a lot. I think even though dual survival and all the survival shows, there's a reality TV part to it where they just make stuff up maybe, but they put them in scenarios that aren't really real. He definitely has a good skill set. I like his stuff, and even though he's made some mistakes in the past, I appreciate his repentant heart and being willing to be like, yo, I'm not perfect, I made some mistakes, gotta move forward. Bear Grylls seems like a nice guy. I'm not really into his shows. Ray Mears, same thing, like seems like a nice dude, but I'm just not into their stuff so much. So I can kind of take him or leave him. I did like Les Stroud when he was doing Survivor Man, especially at the beginning. I just like the idea of getting out there with just a camera, just you, shooting video and saying, hey, here's what it is. His stuff is not as exciting. He's not jumping off cliffs and onto trees and stuff like Bear Grylls is, but it's very much like, here's what real survival is like. Sometimes you just gotta hunker down and wait it out. There's one where he's like fishing, it might be Alaska or northern Canada, Nova Scotia. Anyhow, he basically builds a shelter, fishes, and sits around a lot. And that's what survival is sometimes. So I liked his stuff too. Robert Willis said, what would be a good boot for being out in the wilderness? Good question. Lots of different, tons of different options out there. I've used Aslo, A-S-O-L-O. Some people call him A-Solo. So Aslo I've liked. Merrill I think makes a good boot. Keen makes a good boot. I haven't owned Solomon, like day hikers and stuff, but people love those. Those are definitely good boots. I'm from New England. I've had LL Bean boots before, and they've been really good. Or maybe, you know what, I don't know if I've ever actually owned LL Bean boots, but I've got a bunch of friends who've owned them and they like them a lot. Yeah, there's tons of different options. Part of the question is, what are you using it for? If you're going to have a high boot, so you can wade through mud and stuff. A lot of people love mucks, bogs. I think it's mucks and bogs, right? I actually bumped into a guy. I was sitting next to him on the plane coming back from the SHOT Show last year, who worked for, I think Mucks. And he was going to send me boots. He never did, but we just struck up a conversation. He said he'll send me some review. But when I get out in the woods, I usually, since I'm not out there for a super long time, I'm usually wearing like a pair of Condor outdoor boots that I have, or Original SWAT. I like their stuff a lot. They make nice boots. They're not making a ton of like waterproof stuff that you're gonna like go trekking through a swamp with. And pause here, I'll just say waterproof and water resistant are different things. My experience in the outdoors is that the vast number of things that are waterproof eventually get wet. Rubber boots are waterproof. Everything else seems like it eventually gets wet. Some better than others. Some you can walk through a stream and you're fine, but if you walk through 20 streams or stay in the stream for long enough, it seems like eventually your feet just get wet. That's what it is. So it's all about expectations, I guess, to some degree with that stuff as well. Moms, MOMZ13 said, I've been a subscriber for a few months. I worked my way through your vids, enjoyed your stuff. I would like to see you get out in the field more. Me too. So I'm way down as far as the pile of gear. I had a huge pile of gear I just had to get through, and I get a cool product from a company. They contact me and say, hey, you want to review this? I'm like, yeah, cool. And then all of a sudden I look, I'm like, wow, I'm way behind. And so I've just been trying to bang out the reviews as quickly as possible. I've got a handful more to do, but I'm actually going out, by the time this video is up, I may actually have already done my survival outing, but I'm going to do just like bring a couple things, go out and do some survival, and I'll be testing a bunch of products out there as well. So I want to get out more in the woods too. So thank you for your comment, Moms13, MOMZ13. And I'm hoping to do a mix of kind of like, here's the product and we're teaching a skill. Let's put those things together in the future a little bit more than just like, here's the product, go out in the woods, use it, and then come back to the studio. So that's something I'm hoping to do more in the future. Thanks for your thoughts on that. Let's see. No Fruit Loops asked, do you get the product a company sends to you, or do you have to send it back? Depends on the company. Some companies, they say, hey, we don't have enough of these, or they're really expensive, can you send it back? And I usually say fine. Sometimes I will I'll get a product and they'll be like, product A, like I'll give you an example. I have a backpack now from Cotopaxi. I think it's Poxy, not Paxi, but Cotopaxi, a backpacking or outdoor gear company. They sent me a couple backpacks. And so I'm reviewing one that's like a 16 liter, and they also have a 26 liter in the same style. And so I said, hey, send me both. I'll keep one to use long term and test out, and the other one I'll just roll into the video and say, hey, if you like this one, but you want a bigger one, here's the same style but a 26 liter. And I'm going to send that back to them. And I've done that with other products from different companies. I would say for probably 75% of the companies, they let me keep the stuff. And I usually do one of three things. I usually keep the product if I'm going to use it. I give it away to somebody else who's going to use it. Or I save a certain number of products to either roll into other videos or to use for teaching and instruction. So like, if I'm like doing a thing on choppers and I'm like, okay, so here's a different size kind of, large knives, chopping knives. Here's a knife from CRKT. Here's a low end, Gerber, Gator, sawback machete. Here's a high end, it's the Severance from Three Dog Knife that I got from Northern Knives. So I'm not going to use all those knives and all those things. I'm not really a collector. I just don't collect stuff just for kicks. But I want to have those, so if I'm teaching a class, I can say, hey, if your budget is 20 bucks, here's this. If your budget is 400 bucks, maybe you want to get this one. So I like to keep products for that purpose. That said, I feel like some people can get kind of overly, not the viewers, but some reviewers can get a little bit like, I'm not in anybody's pocket. I'm doing it on my own. I'm giving you honest reviews. My general approach is this: if a company sends me a product or wants to send me a product and I get it and it's junk, or when I'm looking at it I'm like, that looks junky, I just say no. Or when I get it and I look at it, I'm like, this is garbage, I just email them and say, you can have it back if you want it, but I'm not going to review this and I don't want to promote this product at all. So I just don't want to spend my time like looking at a product if it's garbage. I mean, like, here's why this is junk, unless there's a major fail of a product that I use and then it fails for me. For example, the Gerber exchange blade saw I used for a while in a video, and then it broke later on. So I'm letting people know, hey, as I was reviewing this, it snapped and broke. I don't recommend it. So that's generally how I do it. If I don't think I'm gonna like it, I just send it back, or I don't even order it in the first place. And I would say in the past 2 months, there's been 3 or 4 products that have just been like, sorry, I got it, I used it, not great. Here's some improvements I'd make, and then I'm not gonna review it. You can have it back, or I'll keep it and use it maybe on the side, but it's not going to be a product that I'm going to use that often. This is a good one. Matthew Werner, W-E-R-N-E-R-T, said, I want to see if you have any updates on survival kits or bags. If you have any stories to share of actual real world use. I'll tell you what I use the most is the gear in my car and my EDC gear. I use my flashlight and my knife almost every day in a different scenario. My flashlight undoubtedly almost every day. My knife, sometimes a little bit more on and off. Stuff in my car I'm using regularly. I've got my bag in my trunk, and then I've got kind of a grab it as soon as you need it bag in the back seat, and I've got clothes. I'm regularly grabbing like an extra hat, extra shirt, rain jacket, that stuff I keep in my car, using that regularly. I happened upon a motorcycle accident the other day, and as I was getting ready to get out and kind of help people out, the ambulance showed up, so I could step back, but I had my my reflective gear and all that stuff, And I generally don't recommend folks, like run into the situation, be the hero. That's not what I'm trying to be. But if you've been in those situations, you may be surprised to see the number of people who just kind of stand there and don't do anything. And so I'm like, what's that about? Like, you help out, man. Don't you have to? Yeah, so I mean, it's the day-to-day stuff that I use more. It's pretty rare that I'm like, I really needed my machete today to save the day. I'm going to make a separate video to talk about kind of my philosophy of wilderness survival. But for me, it's learning the skill set. It's being prepared in the outdoors. But it's also, how do you press yourself to learn new skills and to problem solve quickly and effectively? That's kind of part of the heart of what Everyday Tactical Vids is about, and the wilderness survival side of things. Here's a good question. Ellis Ingram said, what do you suggest in terms of bug out gear, survival books, or any other prepper type info for overweight folks, children, and people with fixed monthly incomes? And it says, I know people will say lose weight, but it's not always that simple. Thanks for the awesome channel. God bless. I love that question. Ellis, appreciate that question. Yeah, somebody just like, well, we'll get in shape. Yeah, that's probably all of us are like, I know I should be in better shape, or I should be exercising more. But what do you do in the meantime? Here's my general approach is plan for what's most likely and then work toward what's least likely. So you're more likely to happen upon a car accident than you are to have, a riot breakout. It's not that it can't happen, but you're more likely to see a car accident or be involved in one than have a riot breakout. You're more likely to have to deal with massive blood loss if you come across a situation where someone's hurt. Then you're going to have to deal with putting some sort of, let's say, probably not going to have to amputate any body parts anytime soon from a person as quickly as you're going to have to stop major blood loss. So if you build a med kit, build it with that in mind to think, how do I have quick clot? Do I have other things, tourniquets, those types of things that can help somebody in that type of situation? So broadly speaking, I would say build for the most likely scenario and then go to the less likely scenarios as you kind of put kits together or think about training and different things like that. One of the questions, one of the things I think is interesting is that people use the term bug out bag and such. If you look at my videos and I talk about bug out bags and stuff, I generally think of bugging out not in a WROL, as Nut and Fancy would say, without rule of law situation, as much as an emergency situation where I had to get out, i.e. Katrina, storm is coming, everything's going crazy, let me get out of town. Or after Katrina hits, I gotta get out of here because now WROL has kicked in. My general approach though is that bugging out is your last option. I would way more stay in a crisis situation than leave, because I got stuff that's familiar to me. I got a roof over my head, I may have heat, I got pots, pans, I got food in the fridge, I got food if the end of the electricity dies, I got food in the pantry. So the idea of like, I'm just going to grab my bag, or me and my family are going to grab our bags and run to the woods, it's just not that likely unless it's just a crazy situation. So I would way more encourage people to think about emergency plans for in your house as opposed to how do I bug out, and get out of there. The other thing I'm going to say to that question is think about your emergency plan before the emergency happens. So, if you're like, well, I'm in a situation where I got to just split, but I got to meet up my family. Like, do you have a meeting place? Do you know when to meet? Do you know how you're going to communicate? Do you know where you're going to meet? Those types of things. Because the idea of like, I'm just going to grab my stuff and run down the road, especially if you're overweight or, you got health issues, you got kids, it's just not that easy. When I had kids, it totally, first when I got married, then when I had kids, totally changed my perspective on, I could just run to the woods and survive. Well, yeah, but it's hard when you got little kids to really think about that. So what's the best or most likely scenario to keep everybody alive? More times than not, it's going to be staying. Now, when I say that, there are going to be people like, yeah, but I was in a situation. I know. There's always times when there's an exception to the rule, but I would say in general, plan on being at home and knowing your systems and your plans at home before you think about, heading out to go deal with a situation or something. A couple people, Cyclist 0122 and I think Neo Wolf asked, what was your, tell me a crazy survival or outdoor situation. I can tell you two real quick ones backpacking. One was, or day hiking. I was solo day hiking in the Olympic National Park out in Washington State. I was in Seattle for a wedding. I went out to Olympic National Park. I was hiking, I feel like it was called Tabletop Mountain. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I was hiking up that mountain and I got to the summit, and the summit was like this. So there was like a snow field here and then pretty much like a rocky cliff going down to a ravine and a kind of a chasm over the other side. So you kind of walk the edge. I got to the summit, really overcast. Even the picture I took of myself was like just clouds basically. So rather than hiking back down the ridge line and then back into the woods and down to the path, I was like, I'll just go through the snowfield. So I went through the snowfield, but instead of stopping at the basically equal with the path and finding the path. I went past it by accident, got down to the valley. My GPS couldn't pick up any signal. I mean, I had a map and compass and all that stuff, but my GPS is what I was banking on right then, and I was like, I can't find anything. So I started maybe, hiking around to think I'll just kind of cut and bushwhack until I get back to the trail. Come up to a trail, my GPS is right here in my sternum strap, and somehow I moved and it popped out and fell into a stream right in front of me. I was like, what just happened? So I took it out. It worked for about 2 seconds and then died on me. And so now I have no GPS. I'm in the Olympic Mountains. Night is falling. I've got very little food. I've got some basic gear on me, but not a ton. And I'm thinking, I'm going to have to set up a shelter and live in the woods for tonight. Eventually it started to work again. I don't know if it dried out or whatever. But because it was moving so slowly, and this is one of the old school, original Garmins that you could get for backpacking, it couldn't pick me up where I was in my movement, my direction. So I'd have to take off my snowshoes, run through the snow, even if just back and forth, until it picked me up and then said, oh, this is your direction of travel, 2 miles. And probably after 2 hours or so, I eventually got myself back out. Now I could have just followed my path back up the mountain, but that would have taken me a long time too, because I'd come so far down and it was pretty steep and it wasn't treacherous, but it was pretty tiring. So it wasn't life or death, but it was definitely okay, you lose a GPS or your GPS breaks, you're stuck in the woods. People generally know where you are, but you went off the path, so where are you now? Definitely taught me a couple lessons about being in the outdoors. One other one I'll tell you is I was in Rocky Mountain National Park with my buddy Bill, and we were hiking up, I think it was called the Bluebird Lake. And you kind of come over a little bit of a summit, or a little valley between 2 peaks, and then come down to this lake to camp. And as we were coming up, there was a snowfield, and we got our ice axes and our crampons. We're working on self-arrest and doing things in there in the snow. And this weather started to roll in. And having grown up on the East Coast, doing lots of stuff in the Adirondacks in particular, when weather rolls in, you think snow or you think rain. You don't think thunderstorm and lightning. But in the Rockies, a lot of it's lightning, especially in the summer. So huge lightning storm. And we're on this exposed face, and so it's 300 yards back down. So we turn and just start hauling down the mountain. And I can remember my buddy Bill was running, and our tent posts fell out from his bag, and so he stopped and looked back, and it was like a movie. I was just keep going. So I picked him up. We got metal all over us, lightnings flashing all over the place. Finally get back into the woods, kind of wait out the storm, and then we're not going any further. We just got too freaked out by it. So we're going to go back down to an earlier camp, and as we're hiking down, all of a sudden we can see the clouds are now surrounding us. We're in the clouds, literally lightning to your side. As I ran into the woods again, hid out until the weather cleared out again. But that was definitely very eye-opening to be okay, nature is very powerful. Don't mess with nature. You're going to lose that battle. So that was really good though, because I did learn a lot from that experience. People ask about growing YouTube channels and partnering up. HF Survival School. Can you give me advice about growing my YouTube channel, partnering up with other companies? I'll tell you a couple things. If you're interested, you can check out. I used to be into airsoft a handful of years ago, and so I made a YouTube channel called CQB Radio, and it's got probably, I don't know, almost 10,000 subscribers. I haven't touched it in years, but I've done that one, and I've done this one. This one I'm much more serious about. But I used to actually do it in a podcast about airsoft too, and that actually one year I won best podcast. I think it was best podcast in the world. It might have been in the country, but anyhow, little side note. So I've done this on a variety of different levels. One thing is you got to be consistent. The second thing is you got to be professional. If you don't produce quality things that show that you really care, then it's just not gonna end up working. My style definitely with this is much more boom, boom, boom. Here's the information. Here's my thoughts. Let's rock it out. I don't do as much of the side commentary. I'm much more focused. That's just my style. Own your style, know it, produce the information, and then get it out there. And use social media, promote it on social media, and then a lot of it, as is true in a lot of situations, you got to build relationships with people, right? So I try to interact with my viewers in the comments as often as I can. Sometimes people are like, that was cool in a comment, and sometimes I'll respond and be like, thanks bro, or thanks dude. Other times I'm just like, okay, cool, thanks for commenting. I can't respond to everything, but definitely interact with people. It builds a relationship, which I think is the coolest thing, is really the ETV community. I like that so much. And then you can't be afraid to get shot down. You reach out to a company like, hey, this is what I do you want to partner with me? And they're like, no, and you can't be like, oh, forget it, I'm never asking again. You got to just keep going. And one other thing to keep in mind is that companies are looking for value. So they want to know that you're going to make a review. In general, there are some companies just like, I don't care, just for review our product, but they're generally looking to say, we're investing time and money and giving you a product. How are you going to prove to us that you're going to bring a high value to what we're doing? So I try to express to the companies, here's what I'm going to do, here's why it's valuable, here's how many people we'll hopefully reach. And if you're just starting out, to be like, look, hey, I'm just starting out, but if you get in on the ground level, that could be a real win for you, as we go forward in our relationship. So I've seen people interact with companies that are kind of like, look, man, I've got 5,000 subscribers, man. You should be giving me all kinds of free stuff. And I'm like, they just don't. They're like, who are you? I mean, there's companies, pages out there that have got 500,000 subscribers and you got 5,000 and you think you're the cat's pajamas. So be humble as you go and do it. Be humble as you go in and interact with people. And don't be like, I'm going to tell you that I'm the greatest if you're not, because you're probably not, because there's lots of great people out there doing lots of things like gear reviews. But do it well, be humble, approach them humbly, say, here's what I have to offer, and if they say no, find other companies. There's certainly other companies who want to work with you. You got to constantly be learning, be like, okay, so I'll give you an example. I don't know a ton about all the different types of knife steel, 1095 and 1075 and S30V and all these things. I know a decent amount, but I can always learn more. So I'm always trying to ask and learn and watch people make videos and say, oh, okay, so that, 154 cm seems to keep a really good edge for a long time. And 1095 is good for survival knives in general because whatever. I like this type of coating. I don't like this type of coating. Here's why. Okay, now I'm learning. And so when I'm doing a video, I can say, hey, in general, people know that this type of steel is good because, so I've done my research. So you got to constantly be learning and don't just, think it's, people get, I don't want to say annoyed, but they're, like, this is the Spyderco Tenacious. It's really nice and it's pointy, cuts good. It's got the Spidey hole. It's got handles. It's got a little hole here at the end. Like, what? They want to know, like, does it open well? Does it not open well? Like this, when you open it, it says China on the back. Tell me about it being made in China. Does that matter? Does it not matter? Talk about quality control. Talk about this compared to the persistence. The persistence is kind of a smaller version of this. Why do you like this one? Why do you like the other one? How's the pocket clip work? Get into stuff that's not just, like, show that you have some experience with the product and in the field, not just, I like reviewing gear. Last thing I'll say to you is this. If you're just doing it to get free gear, it's going to get old quick. It does. Like, the first thing will be like, oh, that's amazing, I got all this cool stuff. But then eventually you'll be like, there's so much gear, I'm way behind, and I got to review stuff, and I'm just doing it to do it. You got to actually really enjoy doing what you're doing, the video production, the creative side of it, interacting with people. If you're just doing it for the free gear, it's gonna lose its fun pretty quickly. Got another question here from John 3:30 Vids. If that's the Bible verse, he must become greater, I must become less, right? I think so. Anyhow, how do you balance ministry with outdoor stuff? Good question. It can be pretty tough sometimes, honestly. By the nature of being a pastor, it is a 9 to 5, there's office hours and stuff like that, but like I was out actually filming a video on the Rat 7 from Ontario Knife Company, and I got a call from one of the people who works at the church and said, hey, can you come and give communion, not like last rites, but just do communion for a guy who's in a senior citizen's home who is not doing well, likely to pass away very soon, And so I was like, yeah, so I had to go home, clean up, kind of reorganize my schedule with my wife, and then go and do that. So that was just a good example of like where those two things collide. I guess I would say two things. First is that my full-time calling is to be a pastor, and this is definitely a side thing. I love it, but it's a side thing, side job. And so if those two things come into conflict, I'm going to follow my calling, not just a hobby. Could God create this and move this into being a full-time calling? Maybe. We'll see what happens. But I would also say that I do see this as a ministry as well. And I'm not trying to be like, oh, you shouldn't be asking that question. It's a great question, but I'm assuming you're saying ministry like work at the church or with the church community, and then this as something different. But I see a lot of it as ministry, teaching people, helping people, offering information and advice, helping people buy good products, hopefully, spending their money well, being good stewards of the money they have. Encouraging people, loving people. When I get nasty comments, which happens pretty often on YouTube, trying to return kindness for anger or people being nasty, just be nice to them, just love them right back. I do see this as a ministry opportunity, and then also I'll give you an example. One of the companies I worked with, one of the guys, I don't know how it came up, but he told me that his kid was having surgery and said, hey man, like, I'll be praying for you and let me know, how it goes. And so followed up and actually saw him at Blade Show and asked, hey man, how's your son doing? So just want to encourage and love people, and I do very much feel like when there's opportunity for people to listen and they want to engage and talk about Jesus, I'm more than happy to do it. I definitely believe in the clear sharing of the gospel and talking about Jesus with folks, but if folks are like, hey, I don't want to talk about it, I'm not going to be like, you have to listen because I have a YouTube channel. That's not what it's about, right? So when opportunity is there, I definitely want to share it and engage people on those deeper spiritual level questions. And if they're not interested, then hopefully I'm just bringing a good product to the market as far as like reviews, thoughts, feedback, teaching, and things like that. So we're going to wrap up now. I can see my battery's dying out on the camera. Thanks for checking out this video. Hopefully that answers some more questions. You can certainly respond down in the comments below. Thanks again for all your support you give to the Everyday Tactical Vids channel, and we got more videos coming soon. Take care.